Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16, continuing our series of opening game previews. Today, we get to one of the more eagerly anticipated games of the opening week of college football. That is LSU and Southern Cal. I think that went out in Vegas. Chase can't wait to break this one down and see it here in a few weeks.
Yeah, LSU has been in some really intriguing openers the last few years, and this one's right up there with that. This should be a really fun, entertaining game for the LSU Tigers and the USC Trojans. We'll break that down here and preview that. But first, let's talk about BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. And when the game's over, you can go to the online casino, play a game of blackjack or poker, or one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get it on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Chase, let's start with Southern Cal's offense. No Caleb Williams, but Miller Moss threw for, I think, 376 and 6 scores in the Holiday Bowl. They brought in Jayden Maiava from UNLV as a backup. Really good mobile quarterback. I saw him play last year. That was a great get as a backup, too. But no Caleb Williams. There'll be some adjustments, I think, for Southern Cal in game one.
I mean, I think that's the biggest story going into USC this year is you're having to break in a new quarterback after the tremendous career that he had there in Southern Cal. And so, yeah, Miller Moss comes in. He again had a good bowl game against Louisville. That 6 touchdown performance, I think, really solidified his role as he's the projected starter for the year. And will he be Caleb Williams right off the bat? Well, probably not, but I think he could be a really good quarterback with Lincoln Riley in his system. And so that's just one of the pieces I think they're trying to replace there at USC. I think when you look at the other skill positions, they're trying to solidify some starting roles and get some guys to break out this year. But it all starts with the quarterback, and I think that's the biggest story for USC this year. No Caleb Williams. But I think Miller Moss is a guy that will, after some time, kind of follow in Williams' footsteps.
Yeah, I think some concerns, depending on whose forecast you consult. You could say that the 5 new starters on the offensive line, the wide receiving room is, I'm not going to say not talented, but kind of unaccomplished so far. They got Woody Marks at running back from Mississippi State. We've seen him play in the SEC. What do you make of the surrounding cast?
It's interesting. You mentioned Woody Marks, and he had a good career there at Mississippi State. And what really stands out to me, and I think it's why USC went and got him, is not only is he a talented running back, but he can also catch passes out of the backfield. And I think that really stood out to Lincoln Riley and company there at Southern Cal. And so I think he will fit in nicely there at USC. But yeah, the receiver, they haven't had that go-to guy at wide receiver. And I think that's what they're looking for this year. Who can be their top target? I mean, you've got Jacoby Lane, you've got Zachariah Branch. I think they're looking for one of those two guys to kind of be their main guy, but both of them are going to play big roles. And then Duce Robinson back as well. I think he needs to also break out a little bit this season. He didn't get a lot of touches last year, but I think they're kind of looking to rely on him. So they don't really have, Chris, that go-to guy really at running back or at receiver. So I'm really interested to see kind of who's the guy to step up this year and take that role. But when you're replacing a starting quarterback like Caleb Williams, I feel like you need to have some go-to guys, and they just don't have that to me at this point.
Well, let's talk LSU's defense, which has got some questions of its own. It is not what we're used to watching. I mean, LSU's usually got a couple of first-rounders minimum between the secondary and the defensive backfield, and no guys that jump off the page quite like that. They got Zy Alexander, second-year corner for them after being a transfer from Southeastern Louisiana. I think he missed a little time with health last year. You could see a better performance out of him. They got Jordan Gilbert from A&M, who was a really good free safety last year for the Aggies, or has done some nice things at least. But up front, it's not the names we know. There's not a honey badger in the back part. Now, the middle in between, you got a really good linebacking core. If you consider Major Burns a linebacker, he's really more of a defensive back, but everybody knows Harold Perkins Jr. You got Greg Penn back for another year, and you got Blake Baker, who was a guy that really did some wonders at Missouri. Their defense was awful when he took it over. They were very competent a year ago as Missouri, I think, overachieved most people's expectations. I'm very interested to see what LSU lines up in game one.
I am too, and you think back to last year. I mean, they gave up an average of like 415 or 16 yards, 28 points per game. Like, I think it's going to be much better than last year, but still, there's some questions of is this a defense that can make the stops that they need? And I think because of some of those guys you just mentioned, I think it will be much better. And I think what intrigues me about this game is there's so much new on USC's offense, but yet there's so much new on this LSU defense as well. How are they going to both play against each other in an opening game where you're still kind of learning everything? And so that's also intriguing to me is this LSU defense can get some confidence, I feel like, in this game, because again, yes, Miller Moss is a good quarterback, but this is his first time as really in that starting role. They don't really have a go-to receiver. So this could be a game LSU could use as to get some confidence, get some stops to help you kind of propel for the rest of the year.
Well, the only questions aren't on that side of the matchup for LSU. You got some on offense too.
Yep.
You got Garrett Nussmeier, who we really like, taking over at quarterback. Been really good when he's played, but is he going to be Jayden Daniels? Probably not. How many people are? Lose 2 first-round receivers. But, hey, this team's got some talent. Nussmeier's talented. Kyron Lacey's getting a lot of preseason all SEC love. Aaron Anderson was a very highly regarded recruit when he was at Alabama. He's got a chance to step into a higher role, I think, in the slot. They got one of the better tight ends around in Mason Taylor. And oh, by the way, that offensive line, you got All-Americans at both your tackles, which is a great spot. Like, give me a quarterback with the potential and some dudes that are good enough on your skill positions where I think they've got. Give me guys at your tackles that would start for anybody, and I'll take my chances. I think they're going to figure it out. Is it going to be what they had a year ago? Probably not, because who can be that? But I still like what they've got.
I do too, and I think it'll be a really good offense, and I think this offense will win them a lot of games, even if the defense is still not to the level that kind of we expect them to be, which I think, again, they'll be much better. But, yeah, I like this offense. I like Garrett Nussmeier. He's sat back. He's waited his turn. He's learned under some really good quarterbacks. Like, he got to learn under Jayden Daniels every game last year, every practice. They were taking reps together, and so he's worked under some really good quarterbacks. He's waited his turn. I feel like this year he's primed to have a really good year because he does have great receivers around him. The skill guys are really good there at LSU, and so I like where this offense sits. Like you said, are they going to have the numbers as last year? Probably not, but they will be a good offense. And I'm interested to see. I think this is a game they can come out firing in against USC and get some big numbers in this. I really do. I think this offense is a good first matchup for this offense and first game under Garrett Nussmeier.
Southern Cal's got some questions on defense. They got a new coordinator. Deonton Lyon took UCLA, I think, from 87th in total defense to 11th. So a guy that's had a history of turning around, struggling defensive rooms. You got new coaches everywhere. And the names aren't a lot of names that people know. 2 guys in the SEC that we know. Bear Alexander, who I think is in his second year at Southern Cal after transfer from Georgia. He was a very highly regarded, I think, 5-star kid out of high school. Nate Clifton, who was a productive defender at Vandy, maybe not a standout, but a guy that played a lot and played well and has been around a long time. But I think USC's got its work cut out for itself here.
Yeah, they almost completely revamped the secondary. They went to the portal. They got a cornerback from Mississippi State, DeCarlos Nicholson. They went to Oregon State for a linebacker, Easton Arnold. They got safety Keely Arnold from Morgan State as well. They got UCLA safety, Kamari Ramsey. I mean, they hit the portal hard to get some of these guys in the secondary and to kind of rebuild that. And so I think that will help. But still, there is a lot of questions on this defense. And again, with the offense that LSU has, they could expose that quickly with these guys who may not be used to seeing the speed that they're going to see with the LSU Tigers. And so I think that's a point that stands out to me is all the questions on this defense. I think LSU's offense can expose that quickly.
Yeah, special teams is going to be an interesting one here too. LSU has really, really struggled in special teams. Now they've got Damian Ramos, who's a competent kicker, maybe not a star. They got Xavier Thomas from Mississippi State, who should help them in the return game. But Southern Cal's got experience, I think, at both punter and kicker. And I'm just going to read you a line from Athlon regarding their return guy. And it's Zachariah Branch. It says, the All-American might be the most electric player in the sport with the ball in his hands. So that's been a worry for LSU in the past, is just special teams disasters. Feels like Southern Cal's maybe got a bit of an edge there.
Yeah, they do. And Branch is fantastic. And, I feel like when, like you said, the quote from the magazine, but just from what I've seen, like when he gets the ball in his hand, especially in a kickoff, like Southern Cal could take a deep breath because it's going to be good. And so, I think that's something that will definitely play in the favor of USC, and they're going to try to exploit some things, I imagine, they're on special teams as well.
All right, let's get into predictions. The model that I put together, which is kind of taking ESPN, FPI, FP Plus, and our friend Kelly Ford's model. This has got LSU as about a 6.5-point favorite on a neutral field. LSU will bring a lot of people to Vegas too, I'm sure, even though it's a lot closer to Southern Cal. It's drivable from there. But what are the lines saying as we do this first week of August?
Yeah, LSU is a 6.5-point favorite according to FanDuel. So, I mean, they've got this one, at a touchdown. I like LSU's chances in this one. I really do, Chris. Even like you said, LSU is going to travel to this one, and they've played down in Orlando against Florida State. They've traveled well in all these opening games, and I think they will this year as well. I like LSU in a neutral site. I think they'll open the season well, and I feel like anytime the SEC gets to go against a team like USC and try to prove themselves, I think LSU can go out and win this game.
Yeah, two really good coaches in this one. I think Brian Kelly, I remember just the job he did his first year, having LSU unexpectedly competitive, being in the SEC title game, all those things. And I feel like Kelly's defenses have always been good. And I don't see the talent that they've had in the past at LSU, but I feel like the Blake Baker move is one that I strongly endorse that one. And I feel like they've got enough in terms of what Nussmeier can do, Kyron Lacey, Mason Taylor, those guys. I feel like special teams do concern me because that's been a consistent concern for LSU, but I'm with you. I like the Tigers to win this one, and which should be a fantastic game. We'll be talking about it afterwards. The best way to see that is to hit the subscribe button here. That is free, costs you nothing. We cover SEC football, baseball, and basketball wall to wall. So if you like what we do, hit that subscribe button. Again, that's free. Hit the like button. That's also free. That helps our analytics. Tell a friend. And if you want to advertise, we have got an audience of millions every year. You can see how to do that in the video below. And if you're just listening, Caroline.Smith at southeastern14.com is where you go with your inquiries. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 16. Old habits die hard. Presented by BetOnline.